Watch out for the hole.
What hole?
Watch out for the portable hole. Rock out to the portable hole. Watch out for the portable hole. Rock out to the portable hole.
Welcome to the Portable Hole Podcast. I'm Ryan George, and I'm here with Cinik and Justin. How are you guys doing?
Very good. Very good.
So Cinik, you just got back from LA, and it seems like you had an awesome time. How was your trip?
Well, Ryan, I could go on for a long time, and the things I've seen and I've done, but it was a lot of fun. California's got crazy expensive. It makes New York look cheap, but
Wow.
it was a lot of fun. Like, I covered a lot of ground in the week that I was out there. Got to see a couple fantastic ball games, and saw most of the sites. If you get on the TripAdvisor's website of the top 10 or 15 things to do, I've been there and I've done that.
Oh, really?
Was it overrun with crime and homelessness? Like everywhere you went, like it was some, escape from LA sort of deal?
I mean, it's devolving into that. I stayed in Hollywood. That was where my hotel was. So there was quite a bit of homelessness. Say what you want about the city of New York, because we all have our, experiences there. In LA, I saw a homeless guy get beat by a man with a bat because he stole from a bodega. So that was interesting. It was only one or two, be good swats, but he caught him pretty good and chased him down the street. And the shopkeep was spry.
Okay.
If it was in Tennessee, the guy would have been shot. So
Yeah. Quite possibly, but I mean, he did end up saying, "Next time, just ask." So maybe he was okay with giving him something, but not having it taken from him.
Sure.
So beat him with a bat, and then said, "But next time, just ask me, and I'll."
Yeah, Hollywood is an interesting dichotomy of personalities. That's for sure.
How was the baseball game?
I mean, the trip was centered around Shohei Ohtani, and he delivered. It just happened to work out that we were at the game that they clinched the division for the West. He got the game-winning hit. Mookie Betts broke the game open. It was a fantastic game. Other than a little bit of strife with an overzealous Dodgers employee, I had a really good time.
Okay. What happened with the overzealous?
Well, the time before I went to Dodger Stadium, I had more money than sense, and I spent a lot of money on tickets. Mm-hmm. And I sat in the super fancy dugout section, which was way too expensive, but they gave you a gourmet buffet, and it was free food, free drinks, anything you wanted for the whole game. Well, I happened to walk by that section and looked down the stairwell, and there's this amazing picture of Jackie Robinson. And I asked, is it okay if I take a photo of that? I wasn't looking to go inside. I wasn't looking to go down the stairs. And she's like, no. And I'm like, I can't step in and just take a picture of the mural? And she's no. And then finally, another employee made her relent, and I got my picture. And I just wanted to let her have it, but the game was more important than getting my just desserts.
Wow. So you went to Disney as well?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Disney.
How was that?
I think they're in a lot of trouble, Ryan. And it's not just on the creative end or the TV and movie end. The parks are kind of soulless. They're, you would think that it would be overrun with characters, but it really isn't. It's just, money grab after money grab. And I was there for 3 or 4 hours, and I think I saw Gaston, who nobody cared about because I don't even think they realized he was a character. I did see Mickey on my way out of one of the parks, and he had a little bit of a line, but I think they would rather sell you these photo ops. But it's like, they don't even have, so they have this queue system now. It's called a lightning pass.
Yeah, it's a mess.
And you get to pay $30 to have this put on your ticket. And as long as the lines aren't too long, then you can schedule a ride. However, if the lines are too long, you can now pay to get in front of the line.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we only did it on one ride because it was the whole reason I went to the park. So, it was expensive. It was like $25 a person to get us on the ride. But the wait was an hour and a half at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So, I mean, we got to experience it, and I was happy we did because I heard a lot about it, and, we kind of moved on. But it was a good day. And then after that, we did both parks and went to the Angels game because that was our final day there.
Nice. I wonder how much different it is from Disney World in Orlando, because I didn't find it to be that soulless. It seemed like there was it seemed a lot of we saw a lot of characters. Just the energy there was really cool. Like I'd never been to Disney World. I actually only been to Disneyland when I was like 13. But I found it to be enjoyable. Yes, everything is a cash grab.
Yes.
But it was cool. Now, a question for you. So you did do the Rise of the Resistance ride, right?
Yeah.
Now, when I texted you about it, you didn't seem super enthusiastic.
I mean, it was compared to the other rides.
Yeah.
It's more current. So, I mean, graphically it was fun, but it was like basically a go-kart race in different steps. I mean, it was fun. It didn't knock my wig off.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like for all I've heard about it, like IG, who's on the show, pretty much all the time with us, it was like, you got to ride that ride. You got to ride that ride. And I did. And I thought it was okay. Like I wasn't hugely impressed. I was more impressed with the setting of the ride than I was the ride itself.
Well, so I'm going to say, I would say two things then to that, like, cause I'm more in line with Ig, where I thought it was amazing, but I do think a large part of the ride, it's not just the ride itself, but it's everything leading up to it.
Yes.
So I think there is that one moment. I won't give away if you're a Star Wars fan and you were going to go to Disney. Thankfully there was one moment that I didn't read about or hear about. And when you get to experience that, that's pretty kind of awe-inspiring in that moment. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's not even really the ride. So I think the ride itself, I think I probably enjoyed it a little more than you did. I think, it is basically a go-kart ride, but it's a pretty fun go-kart ride and enjoyable. But it is an experience. Like, it's the entire thing. And what's cool is, like, when you start it, you kind of think it's the ride, and it's not really the ride, and so it's cool. Now, did you get to do the Millennium Falcon one?
I did.
That one was uninspired.
Unfortunately, we had two very bad pilots, so we got nothing accomplished.
Okay.
It was like basically, riding with your grandfather when you probably should have took the keys from him.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucked. One thing I did not like at all was we happened to go to Universal. We got up early one day and went over to Universal, and I bought us fast passes for that. And when you get over there's maybe like 3 or 4 rideable rides.
Yeah.
And they're all out of date.
Okay.
Like, nothing's been really updated. It's been the same rides for probably 15, 20 years. So the Mummy, at least in California, they've taken Brendan Fraser out.
Okay.
So it kind of took some of the character out of the ride.
Yeah. So Justin, how about you? What have you been up to? I know
So
you haven't been in the city, right?
Yeah, no, I'm down in Nashville taking care of stuff down here. And I enjoy being in Tennessee very much, a lot more than New York these days.
Really?
But
Why?
I don't. I just like the quality of life. I like being able to travel around and not worry about parking. And of course, I like the music. I like being able to go out and play. And on any given night, you go out and you meet people and you play. And in New York, there's just none of that. New York is just maybe what used to exist, but it don't anymore. So that's that. But of course, the Mets did win today.
If you take the music out of it, would you still enjoy the area as much?
No, there would. I mean, it would be just living in Anywheresville, USA.
So what about did you ever consider New Orleans as a location? Because I feel like if you're going somewhere for music, that is probably the best place like on the planet.
I love New Orleans, but it's different music.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's the music there is for is touristy and local, but it's not about the music business down there. Although New Orleans has made big efforts to bring the film industry in, so they're starting to get more industry down there. They started that a few years back, and people are now filming down there. There's tax incentives for that, so there's been a push for that. But yeah, no, New Orleans music, while I love it down there, it's different. It's a different vibe. And I love New Orleans very much. It's one of my favorite places to visit. I don't know if I'd want to live there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, especially with what's been going on with the infrastructure and the weather as of late.
Yeah, that's
not great. I can say the biggest win from the vacation was me being one of the whitest people in the world. I was in California for 6 days and didn't get a sunburn.
Okay.
So that
Nice.
I can't get through a baseball game without getting a sunburn.
Although it looks like you got some color. I don't know if it's the video or the camera or not, but you look like you got a little bit.
Yeah,
of
I
color.
got a little bit of tan on my arm and my face, but that's about all. It'll go away.
All right, so we'll get to some news. It's been a few interesting news items that we'll touch on. So the first thing, I just think this is it's a weird choice of sequel. And I want to get your opinion on what's more unnecessary, this or Joker, which is coming out this week. But The Passion of the Christ is getting a sequel. And literally it's called Passion of the Christ Resurrection Chapter 1. And it's supposed to, I guess it's set to release in 2025. And it's a sequel. It's been in development for years. And then it's going to explore events between Jesus's crucifixion and resurrection. Also not quite sure how Jim Caviezel is going to be playing the character, now that it's 20 years later, but apparently he will be reprising his role as Jesus. So on the list of unnecessary sequels, Cinik, where do you put this?
Yeah, it's pretty high. I mean, that movie made a ton of money when it came out, and also on video and pay-per-view, and so it was an eventuality that they were going to do this
sequel. Like of all the stories, you don't think need a sequel. I mean, I guess there is some story to tell, but like.
Yeah, the Romans may have agreed with you there.
It's a borderline exploitation film.
And so was the first one.
As was stated, it made a lot of money. So when you make a movie like that, you have a built-in audience. People are going to go see it, and it's going to make unless it's terrible, unless the movie is horrible, it's going to do well. People are going to see it.
Sure. I mean, I think
and there's, but is
Mel Gibson? Yes, he's still.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Interesting. I do wonder if it's one of those, like Avatar was the biggest movie ever, and the sequel kind of, did well, but not well by the standards that the
but for different reasons, for totally different reasons.
Yeah, and you are going to get a large percentage of the country's religious. They're going to go see it.
Much part of the world.
And I wonder what difference though 20 years makes, right? Like Mel Gibson doesn't have the best reputation in the world anymore. The country slowly but sure, slowly has been, shifting more towards secularism. So, not obviously there's still, I guess a plurality, at least a plurality.
It would be interesting to see though, because it's going to be two very different movies.
Well, yeah, and what do you do with the main character? Like, yeah.
I don't quite know where they'll go with it, but because it was kind of frowned upon a bit for the violence in the first movie, and there's really not going to be much of that in the second, at least from my understanding of the story.
And then how much of it do they do they try to tell? Does it go? Are there flashbacks? Are they going to try to tell stories of Jesus's life growing up? Are they going to make it more, and then it's chapter 1, so does that mean there's going to be a chapter 2? Like, where is this thing going? It's strange.
You can bet on it.
Are they creating the Jesus shared universe or whatever? Like, it just does not. I don't know. Interesting, but I will likely not see that. Just like I don't think I've ever saw the Passion of the Christ. So, we'll see. So another news, and we're just kind of going all over a couple politics. A UFC thing, some other comic news, but in New York political news, Mayor Eric Adams, the current mayor of New York City, was long known for controversial antics, was recently indicted on federal charges of bribery, wire fraud, and accepting donations from foreign officials. He asserts his innocence. Sorry, I'm waving around because I don't want my lights to go off.
Boom goes the dynamite.
When's our next D&D?
That's a good question. That's really up to you and Ryan. You guys are the busy ones. I'm always
I'm open, so I can do it whenever you guys figure.
So
Saturday?
Oh well, yeah. We can schedule that after the show since we are live. So anyway, so allegations include that he accepted illegal foreign donations from Turkish officials in exchange for political favors, such as fast tracking construction of a Turkish consulate in Manhattan. He's also allegedly laundered contributions through straw donors to secure millions in public campaign funds. And there's a number of crazy allegations in this if you look into it. It's crazy. So Justin, do you think Adams is long for this world as mayor
I
of New
think
York?
he's. I don't think he's going to survive this. I think they'll make a deal, um, and he'll resign, and that's that. I haven't looked at the evidence, and would I be shocked that he is completely guilty? Not one bit. Not one bit shocked. So I expect that most mayors would probably do stuff like this. He probably just got caught, and
Well,
maybe it was just not. It just wasn't done in a way that was kosher.
yeah,
So I'm sure all big mayors, lots of politicians do this sort of stuff,
yeah.
but it's the way they did it. I think it probably was just too overt.
Yeah, but he's also
So,
he's had corruption, kind of following him pretty
mhm.
much since he was elected. Like, I remember hearing people say when he was elected, like, yeah, I don't think he's making it. He's making it through his entire term because there's just so many things surrounding him, and he just seems like somebody who's kind of like a Trumpian type, for lack of a better word, or somebody I think is a little bit more of a narcissist, cares more
He
most about
definitely
himself,
is.
about publicity, and I don't know how much he really cares about being like a mayor and
Yeah.
actually like being an executive. So not surprised, and hopefully we get somebody in that is actually can do a decent job.
Well, it's unfortunate for him and Bob Menendez and who was the other guy, Santos, that they don't have
Yeah.
the Supreme Court in their back pocket.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
anything that gets said or done to them can just be washed away when it gets to the higher court.
Yeah.
But that's all good and fine. If we're going to enforce these laws, why don't we enforce the laws as far as the insider trading that goes on in the houses? I would like to see that done as well.
Yeah.
There's no reason that these public servants should go in and be rich and then come out wealthy. And
Yeah,
that's what's
absolutely.
happening. Like, hard investigation needs to be looked at as far as Nancy Pelosi goes, because she got mega rich while she's been in that position.
Yeah. Yeah, oh no, absolutely. I think that's one of the major. I think the major issue in our politics has to do with that, and has to do with the money that's involved, and the fact that there, very few politicians, on either side give the impression that they're in it to be actual public servants,
Yeah.
and they all are doing it to either enrich themselves or people around them. And so it just leads to this kind of cynical attitude we all have about our politicians. That
I don't think it's cynical. I think it's honest. Like that's what it like Bernie Sanders is probably one of the only politicians that is against this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And as you could see, he's hated by the Democrats. And Republicans alike.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing that Democrats and Republicans will agree on.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we can get get
exactly.
as wealthy as possible. They'll support each other
Yeah.
in it. They'll
Well,
fight like cats and dogs, but when it comes to getting money, that's the most
Yeah.
bipartisan thing you'll have.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's part of why, I don't know how true it is when they talk about like the Bernie to Trump pipeline. We had a lot of people who were kind of Bernie supporters who ended up shifting over to Trump, because I think, I think a lot of that, if it did exist, is because you have people that kind of felt that at least, still Trump was kind of the populist, and, very few politicians on either side really have that populist feel. Again, I don't know how true that, pipeline was, but there were, I know people who were Bernie supporters who ended up supporting Trump, and it's not really because of their ideology, because obviously ideologically they're, completely different worlds, but they both did have kind of populist rhetoric, so I could see that happening, because most, we don't trust many of our politicians, unfortunately, and no matter who wins this round, I don't think that's going to change all that much. So although I think we all like walls, so maybe it's like an inching in the right direction. All right. So next one, interesting thing came out. So Marvel and DC, I guess, had a patent on the word superhero, or trademark. And recently, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office canceled the superhero trademark, which was owned by Marvel and DC, because they failed to respond to a challenge by a small comic company. So as a result, four trademarks connected to superhero, I think supervillain, are all now available to everybody. So I didn't even know that you couldn't use superhero.
I didn't know that either.
But apparently now you
In
can.
what context, though?
I That is a good question, and I'm
Like
not
maybe you
100%.
couldn't make a movie called Superhero.
I think you could. I mean, you
like-
couldn't. I guess you can. I would think you can't. You couldn't promote your characters being superheroes. But I've got to look, and I feel like I got to think that we've seen superheroes being referenced in
Well, you
things
could have
before.
a superhero, but a superhero, there must be I guess there's a difference. But I'm trying to in what context would you
Yeah.
not be able to use two words that are free for anyone who speaks the language to use? So I'd be very curious to know in what context.
I would
that
think that it's going to be in the
trademark.
context of a comic book, or dealing with heroic and villainous characters. I guess I don't know. That is a very good question. I'm not sure the exact exactly how that works, because I feel like I've seen it before, but it was like something that it's like news to me that it was canceled today or canceled.
Something
last-
also to consider why you might not notice is how many in mainstream pop culture, how much superhero stuff do you see that is not Marvel or DC?
I mean, a lot. No, I mean, a decent amount at this point. There's ton. Both in what medium?
Any medium that like shows or that mainstream people watch, not like hardcore comic book viewers, but like someone like me who would like watch a show on Netflix or Amazon. How many of them are not owned by Disney or
There's
DC?
a lot.
Such as, like, what would be an example?
Sandman.
Okay.
Spawn.
Yeah, all right, so Spawn-
Preacher. The Boys.
The Boys, yeah.
I thought The Boys was or The Boys
Supercell?
was I guess The Boys was the only one I'd see. Okay, I did see Sandman.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
The Preacher.
it's interesting. So I guess that they threatened legal action at some point. I'm wondering how often they were actually, utilizing it. Yeah, it's interesting. It's something to look into more. But again, I'm assuming that it's in the context of like video,
But it have to be
media.
if it's a trademark, it would have to be in print. So it's not like a show could say you can't use the term superhero.
Yeah.
Of course you can, but it would have to be something.
But if you're
where you would-
marketing your
this-
things, you can't
yes,
market them as
you
superheroes.
use that word, that phrase.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking. Like, how many opportunities would there be for that? But I guess
I mean,
what do I
anything.
know?
If you're putting together your outline of a show, or a description of a show, and it has heroes and villains, you might not be able to say superheroes. So yeah. I mean, at this point, it's like it is public domain. So
Yeah.
anyone
As
can use
are
it.
all as is Mickey Mouse now, right?
Yeah, well, the Steamboat Willie version of of Mickey Mouse, you can
I
use
guess
that.
that's
as,
what they worked. That's what they worked out.
Yeah, as John Oliver has been using to hilarious effect, over the last year. But yes, Steamboat Willie is. I believe like there was the Pooh Blood and Honey horror movie. I believe there's like a Mickey Mouse.
There's a Mickey horror film coming as well at some point.
But you can use Mickey Mouse. You could like just create your own thing and say it's Mickey Mouse. Like, let's say you had your own take on Mickey Mouse. You could create something with Mickey Mouse, right?
I don't know, because I don't know if he was referred to as Mickey Mouse in that initial comic or in that initial. Yeah,
I think it's a likeness thing. I don't think it's.
But then
Yeah.
it'll be interesting because like then Batman and Superman are supposed to be public domain in the next decade, and that'll be interesting. How they're used, in the future, and what kind of properties, what kind of things will help. But then it's like even for Batman, it'll be like with the purple gloves and the very first version of it. But it'll be interesting. All right. Anyway, last thing we'll talk about before we get into some of the stuff we've been watching. Cinik, you sent me this, and I guess there's a larger discussion about, celebrations in combat sports. So I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce her name right. Eileen Perez, after winning a fight, basically twerked in her opponent's face. Pretty tacky, celebration. But I know you guys both are, had strong opinions on it. So, Cinik, give me your thoughts on why twerking in an opponent's face is wrong and bad for the sport.
I've always been the Jim Brown type where you act like you've been there before. And I think defeating somebody physically, not just scoring a touchdown, not hitting a home run, but either knocking them out of their senses or making them, putting them in so much severe pain that they submit either verbally or by tapping, is more of a show of dominance than doing a dance directly in their face while they're prone and potentially injured. And it just bothered me that not only did she do it once, she did it twice, because the girl tried to get up and then she turned her body to do it to her again. And I don't know if there was bad blood leading into the fight or not, but I just felt it was unnecessary. I don't love when they stand over top of a knocked out opponent. I don't like when they dance or even do the crotch chop or any of that stuff. I just think that, I love MMA because it's so respectful. They can beat the hell out of each other 1 second, talk mad shit about each other's families, and then once the fight's over, it's all set, it's all done, it's all taken care of. And for me, it's just a continuation of the publicity leading up to the fight, rather than the fight being at its conclusion.
But what makes that different? I don't know that I agree. Like, if you're gonna allow all that stuff leading up to the fight, why is it not okay to have that stuff after the fight?
Have we not reached a resolution?
Not necessarily.
You physically dominated somebody.
Yeah, but that's not.
Yeah. So you would be you're a competitor. You fought. So it'd be okay for me to twerk over top of you.
Okay,
Well,
so here's what I would say, and this is where I think there's two parts to that, right? Part is there bad blood, right? Because I think if there's bad, so obviously a lot of times in these situations they're doing and saying a lot of these things to promote the fight, right? They'll both say,
there's
right?
an
And that's why,
understanding.
and that's kind of why a lot of times, like, even after saying the worst of things, they hug it out at the end of the fight. I think that's part of it. Also, part of it is just like, when you're in there against somebody and you're both trying to beat the hell out of each other, when that's over, I think there's a sense of relief. There's a sense of weird camaraderie that you have with this person you've just like shared this experience with. But if they take it too far, if they say things that stick with you, that doesn't end when the fight ends. And so I think so to me, if there's bad blood from beyond that, then I'm almost okay with it, because, like, look, the fight might have ended, but whatever you said about my family didn't end, and that doesn't end it there, unless we had a set agreement, like, hey, these are off limits and we're going to say this and that and the other thing. So
the other wrinkle is that she missed weight by half a pound.
Okay, yeah,
so maybe she's known for the twerking thing. She's an up and coming star. Yeah. She's already, even though she's only got 4 wins in a row, I think she may have 10 or 12 wins all combined. Yeah. But she's already compared herself to Khabib. Like, she's like, I'm the Khabib of this. So obviously she's trying to make a name for herself. Yeah. But worry more about the weight cut.
Yeah, and I think is it bad taste? Absolutely. I think all the celebrations are bad taste. Like that. So I'm not pro celebration. Even like the.
I mean, what about just standard celebrating with your team?
Enough. Yeah, I think standard. Yes, and like at the end of the day, like it is such a relief that. And there's so much adrenaline that you can't fault somebody for some celebration. Doing things like that.
All the celebration's fine. Just do it away from
not at the expense of
your prone
else.
Opponent, so they can render aid to him, or bring him back to his senses. Yeah, that's my only problem with it. I don't care if they dance. I don't care if they. I think it's Gagey Gagey backflips off the cage. Yeah. I'm cool with all of that. It's just don't do it over top of the guy that's been knocked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. So there's a few things at play. I think that all the shit talking ahead. There's sometimes they literally say, "Let's do this stuff to hype the fight." Yeah. You could be sure between Conor and Floyd that they had agreed to do this. I remember one time after the fight, GSP Sarah Part 2. GSP says, "Oh, we agree." He all but said we agreed to manufacture hype because it just wasn't. You had 2 good guys, so they needed to make tension over it. He all but said that, and then they hugged each other. Now then, Conor and perhaps Chael was the first, right? He's the right.
Not the first,
but he brought it to an art form, right? Yeah. And then Conor took it, made a business out of it.
Yeah.
So. And we see one instance where it stuck with someone. It stuck with Khabib after he beat Conor. It turned into a riot, basically, and that's where it goes too far. I think that that as a sportswoman, there's a sense of there's professionalism that you have to have. Celebrating with your team, great, but when you celebrate over someone, you twerk in their face, you stand over someone, you mock them after they've after they've lost. And now remember, within reason, maybe there's a lot of adrenaline and someone just does something crazy, but then comes to their senses and then walks away. I could see someone just doing something impulsively because there's so much adrenaline. That makes sense. But I think when you have a minute to calm down and yet you're still taunting someone, that's it. It leaves a sour taste in your mouth. But here's the thing: we all saw how Connor got wealthy.
Yeah.
And although interestingly enough, Connor never mocked anyone after the fight. You notice it was always before. He was very respectful after the fight, so it's interesting. But
as long as he won.
As long as he won. Correct.
When he was laying on the floor after he broke his leg on Dustin Poirier, he's still talking trash about his wife.
Was. It's true. He was very classless when it came to that. But the UFC is a name-based sport, right? So it's while the skill means a lot and winning means a lot, they know to make the money, you need to go up and you need to fight the bigger fights. You need to hype the fight. That's what they want from their fighters. Yeah. So the reason why you see these types of celebrations, it's understandable because they're thinking about their career. If I get more eyes on me, I get more hype, more social media memes that I can make, I'm going to make more money off of it. So I get it. Right? If it wasn't like that, maybe there would be less celebration, but you're sort of stuck in this middle ground. It's like, well, you want to be an athlete and be respectable, but you also want to push your career.
Yeah, and there's no union. They don't have pension, and so for a lot of them, it's like I need to make as much money as I possibly can because at the end of the day, when I'm done fighting, there is I'm going to be coaching or doing something, and so I can see the desire to I'm going to do what I can to get those hits and get the followers and get that big payday. Because the UFC certainly does not care.
One of my favorite moments, even though I was a huge Conor mark, was Khabib hovering over Conor while beating him senseless and saying, "Let's talk now. You want to talk? Let's talk now." As he rained punches down on him, and Conor's like, "It's just business. It's just business." He talked about his dad, and his dad is the only thing in the world that means anything to him. Yeah. And you played the right card. You got the guy upset.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, and it's like with any kind of trash talk. Yeah, you gotta. There's always that risk that you're gonna say something that really hits a nerve and sticks with the person, and then that's.
Although that's part of it too, right? If you can say something that sticks with someone, that gives you an advantage. So the shit talking is a psychological warfare.
Absolutely.
It's actually a strategy.
But you also have to deal with the consequences as well, right? And that means you're lying unconscious and the person celebrating, however they're going to celebrate.
Yes.
So again, I don't know this particular situation, but I think it's it's like it's encouraged by the sport. I'm sure that they want that. There was a bunch of articles about it online. We're talking about her. So like I think all around it's something that they're going to take it, right? Because no publicity is bad publicity. So. Unfortunately, that's part of it until they start, take a page from the NFL and start banning certain celebrations.
Well, you put it into it if fighters were fined a portion of their purse for taunting, but they will never do that.
They would do that.
And maybe they'll if something is so egregious, they'll say, well, now we're fining you X% of your purse if you do that. That'll put a fast end to it, but. They'll take it as far. They don't want to do that because, as you said, they want this. They want the hype. They want the tension.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to talk a little bit about what we've been watching. So, I will start. Have you all watched some of the Vince McMahon documentary?
Finished it last night.
I have not. Okay. I've been waiting.
You haven't seen any of it.
I've been waiting for my girlfriend to get here so we can watch it together.
Okay. Well. I'm
excited for it though.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Cinik. So they started filming it prior to all the major allegations that came up against him in 2022. Vince McMahon and a lot of WWE talent are part of it. You've got major stars, Hogan, The Rock, Steve Austin, stars from way back when Tony Atlas. Are all part of
Too
this.
bad the Ultimate Warrior wasn't able to be on it.
And they give a lot. Now, as somebody who's a fan, grew up a fan and still kind of follows it kind of tangentially, I was aware of a lot of the stuff. What's interesting is kind of it's Vince McMahon while tied into like a history of the growth of the WWF, WWE. So I feel like it was a mix of both. Like it wasn't quite just about Vince McMahon, but also about how he created this, behemoth. And, but then it, becomes clear, that then, they make clear that once these allegations came out, Vince McMahon basically canceled the last few interviews of it. So, and that combined with these being kind of ongoing, legal issues, we don't get much information on like these new things that have come up. So I didn't find it to be horribly biased against Vince McMahon. I think it is about him. And it, definitely doesn't paint him in a good light, but I didn't find it to be like a hit piece, as I think, I know he put out a statement about it, but Cinik, what were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, 95% of everything they covered is out there. It's been out there. It's been other documentaries. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't agree to a documentary unless I was making it. Because to get his kids and to get the people close to him on there, they had to sell it as like a career retrospective. And not what it turned out to be was we got an honest accounting of who Vince McMahon was. And, I mean, parts of it were rough. The one quote that stuck with me was, I think at the end of the first or second episode, where he said, "It wasn't rape, but if it was, the statute of limitations were up anyway." Yeah,
that's pretty rough.
I mean, I don't know how you look into a camera and say that. Like, I just, that floored me. And I think that he got away with so much for so long, and he was never held really, truly accountable for anything, that he really thought that he could do anything. Like, I don't understand this. It must have been the whole, he got off on the power dynamic that he would hire these women and then force them into situations and then have to pay them off, because it wasn't one, it was like 4 or 5 women that, multi-million-dollar hush-hush settlements, or walking away papers and NDAs, and it shocked me that, like, you're a rich guy. He wasn't up until the end. I mean, he wasn't a terrible looking guy. Like, you shouldn't have to do all this. So it must have been the act itself of forcing the situation that must have got him off. But it was a lot of it was real rough, and a lot of it, like, he doesn't take accountability for anything. Not Owen, not Brett, not anything. Like, he just doesn't.
Sounds very similar. Sounds like somebody.
So would you say that off of this, off of watching it, that he is a complete sociopath, or is he somewhere a little like just a narcissist? Like, is he?
He's a complete sociopath. I would say that there were a couple people that have argued that you have all these hours of stuff, and like you didn't mention all the good stuff, the good that he's done. I think it was Bruce Pritchard was saying that, like, when his wife was diagnosed with cancer and he sent her to the best doctors, and I know that he has done some good, right? But like, he's a complete sociopath. That seems clear. I will say, what I found most interesting, and I wanted to hear more, is about his childhood and how he grew up, because it clearly, how he grew up in his relationship with his dad, who didn't come into his life until he was a teenager, seems to play a major role with him. And then the most moving part, I think, was then dealing with some of the stuff with Shane McMahon. And Shane kind of kind of absorbing some of the same kind of trauma that he had, and just wanting that kind of, just wanting acknowledgement from his dad. And there is the one moving moment in it, I think, has to do with, the one time that Shane seems to get like the, that, stamp of approval from his dad. And, that was like one of the more moving parts of it.
But what he had to do was near kill himself.
He nearly kill himself, yeah.
Exactly. Concuss himself and jump off something that was 20 feet tall, and he nearly had to kill himself
literally
in order to get a reaction out of Vince.
To get an attaboy, yeah.
Meanwhile, Stephanie's sitting next to Vince, and she's losing her mind because her brother is out there risking his life. Yeah, and that was the thing about Shane, and why the fans loved him, is that he would show up, put on these amazing matches, do this crazy shit, and then go away. And then, pop back up a year or two later. And, I mean, a lot of that was really hard to stomach. And I hope that Shane's doing it differently with his sons. It seems like he is.
It seems like he is, yeah.
Because, Vince Sr. did it a little bit differently to Vince Jr. He just wasn't there. Vince Jr. was there with Shane, but he always just dangled that fatherhood like right out of reach.
Exactly.
And always chose Stephanie at every turn. Even when it came to line of succession, it ends up being Stephanie. So, I really felt like the biggest loser in all this was Shane. Like, I hurt for him while I watched it. Growing up without a father myself, I understood what he was going through, always wanting, someone to accept you in that way.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, the MVP of that whole documentary was Tony Atlas.
I was going to say, that was my next question was, who's your favorite talking head? And
it
he was great.
It was absolutely Tony Atlas. He was hilarious and he was direct. And
so honest.
Yes.
It was,
He just did not give a shit. And that was great.
There were a couple lines where I'm like, well, I can't believe he just said that, but he did. And he meant everything. And
yes. Well, he talked about their use of women in the 80s. And he's like, we weren't great people. We abused the shit out of women. And, it was, you could tell that there was a lot of people that are still on the edges of the business that didn't want to just speak directly. John Cena. Yeah. John Cena didn't want to say anything to step on anybody's toes. He's got a loyalty to Vince McMahon, but Tony Atlas really told it like it was.
And Bret Hart too. Bret Hart, I think, was also pretty good.
I mean, Bret Hart is, he's unfortunately going to die a bitter guy, not without reason, but he's still wrapped up in all that.
Yeah, but I do think he was generally honest, at least about his own opinions. But yeah, I think, it's definitely worth watching. But yeah, there's not a lot of new stuff. I think more for me, it was like, I don't think it was really a hit piece so much as like, hey, there's a story to tell. And I don't know how you don't tell the story this way. Like, I don't know how you I guess they could try to paint him in a nice light, but it would almost feel like shoehorn. It's like, no, this is the guy, and apparently he tried to buy it back. I think apparently there was a similar situation with Oprah. I mean, I don't know how bad that documentary was, but she was able to buy the documentary back, where Vince McMahon tried but was unsuccessful in buying it back.
Well, then Netflix. Tried to have Ari Emanuel, the head of TKO, bury it. Yeah. And, that didn't happen for him. And I'm glad they didn't, because this stuff needs to be out there. People need to know, very similar to the Michael Jackson situation where, if you've never seen Finding Neverland, you wouldn't understand the depravity and the lengths that he went to. And, I think it's important to know the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, then the next thing, have you guys, Justin, have you watched let me ask you, have you watched anything recently?
Yeah, a couple things.
What have you watched?
Speaking of Cena, I saw Jackpot, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Yeah. It's sort of exactly what you want. It's like when you go into a diner and you're like, I want pancakes, bacon, and eggs, and like you make it exactly how you want it, and and that you eat it, and you're like, that's exactly what I wanted. That's what it was.
Yeah, I've heard it's fun. So
it's a lot of fun. And it's good. It's low maintenance. Okay. So I feel like a lot of what's coming out is high maintenance. Like you have to pay attention. Like for instance, I finished House of the Dragon. Yeah. Finally. So, but I remember having to go back and watch certain bits because it's like I was just like I lost track of it, and it's actually anxiety inducing because like, did I miss something? Yeah. I've also started watching Penguin, which I thoroughly enjoy as well.
Let's talk about that next. Yeah, because we're going to talk about
really
Penguin. So
enjoyed that as well.
I've watched
There's
one
certain
episode
aspects about it that I really like.
Yeah, so I've watched one episode of Penguin. Cinik, how many episodes have you watched so far of Penguin?
I caught the second episode last night. Right. Then now they did this odd thing where they waited 2 weeks before. Yeah. So we're in LA and we only have regular cable TV, so we keep trying to catch the second episode of Penguin, not realizing that it wasn't out the week we got back. Exactly. So it's like we kept tuning in and kept catching the first episode. Yeah. They really played the hell out of that show.
Yeah. So what are you thoughts? Yeah. So Justin, your thoughts on episode one?
I like the setup, and I know. Look, it's become super popular to give a backstory to a villain before he becomes who he becomes, and to almost humanize them in some way. That it's been popular as of late. I just really enjoyed the way that they did it, especially because we grew up not thinking of the villains like there's all these Batman villains. How did they get there? And this tells one of those stories, and I like the character. I like his I like that he's a human being. Like he's a bad guy for sure, but there's elements of him that are human as well. He's not complete. He's bad, but he's not completely bad. He's not just some, just kill everyone. I don't care what happens to anyone. There is a little bit of redemption, and it's all about his ego. I
Yeah.
like the fact that everything is based on his ego.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'm going to do this for, I'll show them. And it's like he's almost like a working man's villain.
Yeah. Well, I like that.
And the performances, I thought, and just everything was really good technically.
Yeah. No, I like that they did a few things that I enjoyed. Like, so first is, obviously it's in the Batman universe, and I love the Batman. I think it's one of the better, one of the best Batman movies, but it does not feel bogged down by it.
Yes,
Batman's referenced,
yes.
and then
They reference
we don't
the
hear
Riddler,
about
they
him.
reference
It's
a
not. We're
couple
not worried about.
things.
We're not worried about him. We're not thinking about him. It's the Penguin show. I also like that they didn't try to make him an anti-hero. He's not like Peacemaker or why that's the first one that popped up. But he's not like Walter White. He's a villain, and he's clearly a villain. But he's got some charisma, and they gave us a reason to care about. Not necessarily care about him, but care about what he wants, and then he finds his like the guy, and he shows some mercy, and then you have another person who's like, okay, this is somebody who I can kind of root for because he's just kind of a kid on the street trying to make his way.
Yeah.
Now that might change over time, but I really like how they set things up. They give him somebody. An adversary of sorts that's even more evil than he is, it seems, and I think they just a really good job of setting things up. And it's interesting with this the Penguin character because we've gotten so many iterations. That I love the different iterations of this character because you've got like the Danny DeVito version. You've got there was in the Telltale Batman games had a really interesting version of Penguin. There was the Gotham version. There's even this new Batman animated show that has a female version of Penguin that I think is great. So I love that you have this character that like is like this rich fertile ground like to pull from, and I think it works because they're not trying to make him too sympathetic, but he's charismatic enough that we want to know what happens, and they gave him he wants something, and we're on the ride with him for it. How about you, Cinik? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I wish they wouldn't have killed Michael Zegan so quickly.
Yeah,
because he's becoming one of my favorite
good,
actors. Yeah, he's really good. Like he's from Miss Maisel to The Walking Dead. Like he was on Rescue Me, and he was great on there as well. I wish they would have kept him around a little longer, but I did. It was a surprise when it happened. I mean, the show has been better than what I thought. It's been more engaging, more intriguing. It's the second episode moves a little slower than the first, but it's interesting to watch him problem solve out of these issues and kind of manipulate things so he comes out on top.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it's headed. Like, I understand that he's going to end up being like the head crime lord in the end, that we get all that, but I don't know how he gets there, and that'll be the fun part of the ride.
Yeah.
And I also think that the kid that he's running with will probably be sacrificed at some point to save his own life.
Yeah.
I was thinking
so
that too.
solid so far. Really enjoying it. I will say so. I did see a movie over the weekend. I was trying to see Beetlejuice, which I still haven't seen yet. I did go see Speak. Was it Speak No Evil?
How was that?
It's good. I like James McAvoy's a great villain. Like he has it. He's able to do it. He's incredibly charismatic, but also plays that role like really well. Kind of creepy throughout. But then just turns and he it's a really well done. I think it's really well done. Like it's got the right amount of tension to kind of keep you on the edge of your seat. It's unsettling at times, and then as you learn more and more, I think the revelations work. It's a little bit of like there's some interesting moments like where like a lot of times the big thing is like you have the characters like there's an easy way to get out of the situation, and they don't take it, and in this case they do take it, but they keep finding their way back, and it's really interesting how they play that, because there's a lot of like there's really good with kind of subverting your expectations. We've seen enough horror that we kind of know, okay, this is what's going to happen, and that doesn't happen, but then something else happens, and so it's interesting. And then you start running through your own head, like what would I have done in those situations? So I think it's really well done. I think the third act kind of falls into I think with a lot of horror, the third act is always the kind of same thing, and maybe could have been done a little bit better. Maybe I think I might have had a different ending if I was writing that. I feel like maybe they did. I won't say give too much away, but I didn't totally love the ending, but it was a solid movie, totally worth seeing if you have time.
Well, the evil influence I've had on my wife, who wasn't a superhero fan at all, we were standing at the movies because we had a couple hours between Disney and the Angels game, and we had the choice between Say No Evil or Speak No Evil, or what was the name of it?
I think it's Speak No Evil.
Speak No Evil, or Deadpool and Wolverine.
Okay.
And she chose Deadpool and Wolverine.
Again.
So we ended up going to see that again, even though it's going to be released in the next day or two on Disney Plus.
Yeah. And then last thing we'll talk about is Agatha All Along. So I've not caught up with the third episode. I've seen the first two episodes. I know we talked about it this offline. I think the first episode is unnecessary because of where things go, but I enjoy where it's going in the second episode. I kind of like the cast. I think it's got a nice, interesting group of characters. I like that it's leaning into the witchiness of it. The song is not as bad as it is in Star Wars because that's the show, right? It's supposed to be kind of silly, but I'm enjoying it. I think Catherine Hahn's awesome, and got a great cast. So I'm cautiously optimistic, although I know the ratings have not been good and it's gotten some pretty piss poor reviews, but I'm going to stick with it. At least the first two episodes, I'm in. And like the first episode's not bad. It's just like an unnecessary episode. What are your thoughts, Cinik?
Well, I'll see it out. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll watch it till the end, only because I do like Catherine Hahn. But I mean, this would have been the perfect gig for Leslie Headland, and maybe she would still have a job.
Yeah.
This is what she wanted Star Wars to be, and maybe she should have just went this route.
Yeah.
And it would have been like the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
I mean, it was okay. I agree with you. The first episode was, I felt like it was a miss, but the second episode was okay, and I'm interested to see where it goes. I don't have anything good or bad to say about it at this point. I did feel like the second episode drug a little bit, but I'll hang in there because, with it being Marvel, everything is connected. And there was that slight WandaVision feel to it in the very beginning, which I kind of liked, the slight connection to that. And I think we might have saw Butt on Disney Plus, which surprised me.
Yeah. Yeah, that was not expected, but so far so good. Have you seen Agatha yet, Nick? Justin?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, if you have a chance,
I
check
will.
it out because it's definitely a fun, good show. Any other shows you guys want to call out that you've seen recently that you'd recommend?
Well, I went. I'm a little late to the party, but I went down the rabbit hole of not a show, but of watching Jubilee content. I don't know if you've gotten into it, but it's pretty interesting stuff, and they've been doing it for a while. Where, but it's interesting, and it's two pronged. So the content is interesting on the face of it. So what they'll do is they will take opposing views, like obvious people, like Trump supporter versus anti-Trump supporter. They'll do something like that, and then they'll have them debate and blah blah blah. And then they'll do stuff that's potentially controversial. They'll get someone like anti or people like LGBT that have converted and claim to not be versus people that are, and they'll get them to talk, and it's interesting. And then so I went down the rabbit hole and watched a lot of the videos, and I found it very interesting because you want to see people talking about it intelligently and making points. And the show, one of the shows is called Middle Ground. Well, they're trying to find a middle ground, and then I started realizing that they hired professionals on both sides as part of the content, when at first I thought it was just regular people, and then you could see sometimes people have talking points. Some people actually are like social media influencers that they had on. So it sort of changed my view of it, but I still found it interesting. I liked some of the content, even though some of it is clearly contrived, and they make it seem like it's it's an experiment, and we're trying to, we're it's a social experiment. We're trying to find middle ground, and it's like, no, you're making content so you can make money, is what it comes down to. But some of the content is interesting to hear what's said.
Yeah, it might be worth checking it out.
I think you would like it. I think it's sort of up your alley a little bit.
Yeah.
Cinik would probably detest it on all sides because you would hate everyone involved.
I generally do.
All right. Well, that is it for today. So, Yeah, as usual, all of our stuff is at portableholepublishing.com. You can find the podcast, newsletter, and all of our projects out there and coming up. So, Justin,